All right, welcome to This Podcast is Making Me Thirsty, the place to be for Seinfeld fans. This is episode 39. In this episode, we welcome two guests today, actually. We have Harrison Cameron, a comedy writer based out of LA, and Sam Fragoso. Sam's the host of a very popular podcast, Talk Easy with Sam Fragoso. Past guests he's had on his podcast include Fran Lebowitz, Matthew McConaughey, Noam Chomsky, Malcolm Gladwell, and Philip Baker Hall. Sam's a filmmaker and writer who's written for Vanity Fair, The Atlantic, NPR, and VICE. And among his work with Vanity Fair, him, with the help of Harrison, wrote a 2015 article ranking every Seinfeld episode. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. So welcome, Harrison and Sam. Thanks for joining us, guys.
That was great. If I could just have you walking around with me in my life, just sort of introducing like that.
Good stuff. Wow. Did I say your last name right, by the way? I just wasn't.
Yeah, it's close enough. I mean, it's Mexican. You can do what you can. It's Fragoso.
Fragoso, cool.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, Sam, Harrison, welcome to This Podcast is Making Me Thirsty. So first, let's just say what you did was an impossible task, right? We've all tried to do it, like the greatest comedy show of all time. To rank it, really hard. So take our hats off. But so let's take a step back. Like, how did the whole article come about, right? You worked for Vanity Fair. Did you kind of raise your hand to the editor-in-chief? Did they know you're a big Seinfeld fan? I think it was the anniversary, right? That's why the whole thing came about. Can you shed a little light on that?
I can try to remember this. Thank you for applauding me and Harrison for the really important work that we were doing here on Vanity Fair. This is okay. Here, I'm going to give basic context. I think at this point, the show hadn't been put on any streaming platform, and I think it was finally going to be on Hulu or something like that. So I made a pitch to do it. I was not working for them. I was just like a lowly freelancer. I was 19 years old, like begging for work.
Very lowly, we should say.
What do you say?
We can't stress enough how lowly you were. At that
as
point.
low as you can go. As low as you can go.
Yeah.
And I made the pitch, and they said yes. I think within like 4 days of when it was due, and I thought, okay, I've seen every episode many times at that point, multiple times. But I was even then I was like, boy, that's a lot to do. Obviously, you just say yes and do it. Being like 19 years old and like probably super high smoking weed, I procrastinate this at least a day and a half to where I only actually have 2 days, and Harrison is with me in this. So I'm looking over these rankings, and obviously we can start litigating them. But I remember, I have these distinct memories basically of 2 straight days writing like little snippets for every episode. And eventually what happens is there's no other ways to describe the show. Like, they're funny. It's uproarious. It's ruckus. It's outlandish. It's like you can't, and I'm reading the writing and I'm profoundly embarrassed by how bad the writing is. But
your writing you're talking about, like your
yeah. No, just
each blur.
My writing for sure. And I have to say, I never thought in the intervening 6 years that one day 2 men would email me asking to dissect something that I thought was long behind me.
Right.
But it lives on, and that is the internet. And
well, you're talking to 2 crazy people yourself, so I mean,
that I understand.
Yeah, well, I mean, we rewatched every single episode for this podcast and did the same thing you did. In fact, years before, and I brought this up many times in our podcast, I was getting my master's degree in library science. Don't even ask me why or what that was all about, but I did it. And we had our final project, a season, semester long, almost like a thesis. And I did mine on Seinfeld. And similar to you, I was like, I'm going to, prepare for this, and I'm going to rewatch every episode and do all this stuff. And I ended up just using memory and the book that came with the box set, because it has like a little breakdown of everyone. I just went through that. I ended up like referencing nearly every.
I have that exact
Yeah,
thing.
this too. Yeah, you need that, right?
I was using that the whole time. And Harrison is sitting next to me while we're watching. We're sort of rewatching some of them, and so Harrison has the book open, and I'm like, all right, whatever. Season 6, just what do they say? Give me like 9 words from there, because at a certain point you're like, I wrote like 10,000 words.
Right.
I mean, it was insane. I actually think it was like 7,000.
Did you have a top 10 going into it that you were just like, let me stick with this? Or you literally were just like, let's see what happens and go with it as you went?
I think since you can see that, let's see, the subway is number 8, I think the answer is no. Because if I had a list going into it, the subway would probably not make it onto the top 10. I realize now I made some mistakes here.
Well,
should we dive in?
That's a great point. It's a great point you make about making mistakes. Like our top 10, top 50. Like you asked, like we sent you our list, but like you ask us in a month, that could change. I think that's kind of the beauty of the show. So how did you? So Harrison, let me just ask you. You guys grew up together. When did you first kind of get introduced to Seinfeld, right? And like, when did you guys start kind of talking about it? Obviously, it's probably like a lifelong obsession. You guys probably share lines all the time. But when did it start? Because you said you're 19 in 2015, so you're born. I'm trying to do the math here. 2004, 94. Okay,
94. 2004. Yeah. 90,
Wait, so you were born in 94. You weren't watching it live. You guys weren't really watching it live.
No. It was 94.
Okay.
Harrison, I think, is 95.
And I will say I didn't start watching Seinfeld until around the time that I met Sam, maybe when I was 14. And because at that time I just would torrent full TV shows and I would just watch them because I couldn't sleep ever because I was and and then I got really into Seinfeld, and then I think that maybe helped our friendship. I mean, I'm sort of the George Costanza. He's more the Jerry. It's sort of how we look at our friendship.
All right. I was going to say you got a little Kramer in you there, Harrison. I don't know. Sure.
Thank you. Well, you got to see me enter a room because people it gets out of control.
Oh, Howard's our Larry David, so that's why that's why we got him on this. He's my co-host there. He's our Larry David.
I like how he said it helped our friendship. Like it was like a struggling friendship until Seinfeld came about, and then we became close friends.
So where did you guys grow up? Because that's kind of a New York centric show. I always like to ask where you're from to kind of get an idea of that.
Grew up in the New York of California, which is it's called Fresno. It's right in the middle, and it's famously the butt of jokes.
The armpit, in fact.
The armpit, I would say, and not a shaved armpit either. This sucker needs some manscaping, certainly.
I grew up in Chicago, and when I was 15 or 16, I moved to Fresno for reasons that this podcast no need to dive into. Obviously divorce, and then I met Harrison. Of course, I mean, I'm not like moving myself to Fresno. If you're gonna choose somewhere to go, a kid doesn't choose Fresno. But I met Harrison my sophomore year. He was a freshman, and I guess I thought you had already been watching Seinfeld, but I don't know. Now I'm misremembering.
I probably told you that I did.
Cool.
That was my MO back then.
Yeah,
then catch up later.
And that's the sign of a cool high schooler. It's like, oh yeah, I watched Seinfeld. Show from the 90s.
Yeah.
But yeah, we
show from the
did
90s.
watch it.
So let's get to the ranking. How did you? So the way we broke it down is we kind of went season by season, ranked seasons first, right, and then put it all together and kind of picked away from there, like bottom half and the top half. Did you have a similar kind of structure? Like, how did you build out the list?
I really got to say, I think what you two have done is infinitely more intricate than whatever I was doing. I think there was at least 3 or 4. I'm re-looking at this now again for the first time, and there was a few of them that I thought, okay, that's definitely going to be in there. Like the Merv Griffin show, I knew that was going to be in there. the marine biologist, that would be in there. The boyfriend part 1 and 2 would be in there. And then everything else was kind of like asking Harrison, what did he like? We flipped through that booklet that you have behind.
Yep. I love hearing this, by the way, because whenever these like lists come out, especially in a publication like Vanity Fair, you're getting some eyes on it, right? And in this day and age, it's always like, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. And you're just like, hey, man, I just put this thing together in a couple of days with my buddy. Like, I didn't, and people like are going nuts about it. And like, he doesn't know what he's talking, It's not like you're like, this isn't something that you like took months to figure out. It's just like, hey, this is what I did. I put it together. And like,
well, it took. I mean, I had been watching Seinfeld, so I guess in contrast to Harrison, I had been watching Seinfeld with my father since I was like 7. He had the VHS tapings initially.
That's what we have. We both have.
And then he had all the DVDs that were not in that kind of fancy box set that came out.
When they did it separately.
They came out sequentially, which we also had. So, I wrote it in 2 days, but I had been watching for 12 years.
Sure.
So I think it takes, and even still after 12 years, you can see the sort of lapses in judgment on this list.
Did you call your father about it? Did you ask him about this?
I think I consulted him. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's certainly an influence there. And when we look at your list, it seems weighted towards certain seasons. Same with ours, right? Like, we are huge season 3 and season 5 guys.
I mean, you guys don't have a single episode outside of season 5 in the top 40.
No, right, exactly. We don't have anything from season 9 until like 90.
Yeah.
And that's because of O'Hara. It would have been even lower. I snuck a couple of 9s in there just to get a couple in the top 100. But yeah, we're very, very, very partial to 3 and 5, 2 even. I mean,
and why is that?
Because it's the crust of the show. So the show is 2 guys talking about their daily life, just 2 buddies, 2 friends in a coffee shop talking about their life, talking about girls. The phone message I posted on Twitter today, that scene when George walks in and talks about getting the girl, getting the date, and if I chewing an apple, I feel bad. That minutia of that conversation is the show, and that's what we fell in love with when we were watching it live, and it became a different show. It became. No, everyone's different taste. It became a different show. It became a little bit more outlandish, a little more cartoonish, a little bit more absurd. And that's not our brand of comedy. I mean, it wasn't what George was all about. George was about, the neurosis and, all that kind of stuff. And it just kind of blew up to, you can sum up George in season 8 with, I mean, that's what it became.
What's funny is you guys have a good blend of kind of what he touched on, like some of the core stuff, like the boyfriend, like I'm so glad you have it in there, marine biologist, the contest, like those top 3 I can't argue with, right? But then seeing the sponge in there, even Merv Griffin, I know a lot of people like that, but the show, it just, to Tony's part, it got very cartoonish, and we noticed when, again, we get in the minutia, like when Tom Sharonis, the original director, left the show, something just fell apart a little bit in our eyes.
Yeah, he left after 5, and then Larry left after 7, and then it kind of really started.
This podcast is really just in support of Tom Sharon, which I think
a lot of it is. Yes, now you're getting it. Now you understand where we're coming from.
He's always wanted that. He seems like a nice guy. I hear you. I think Harrison and I have talked about this a lot, and I don't even want to mention him because it's in fear of some cancellation. But the first few seasons, George is really playing Woody Allen. I mean, he's actually
1 and 2, yeah. Yes.
I mean, especially the first 2, because he is basically positioning himself as a neurotic, eligible bachelor whose neurosis is getting in the way of him falling in love.
Right.
It then sort of graduates into a much worse person than the characters that Woody Allen plays.
Well, he becomes. I mean, he even says it that he realizes, oh, this is Larry David, and after working with Larry David, he realized, oh, when he went to Larry David, said, who would do this? Larry David was like, I did this. So he's like, okay, I'm playing Larry David now. And Larry David is really just a Woody Allen, if you want to go that train, So he was doing Woody Allen first and second season, and then third, fourth, fifth, he's doing Larry David, and he's doing what Jason Alexander brings to Larry David. And then by 6 into 7, 8, 9, he's doing Jason Alexander now, the character that he created, and that's when the ho-ho and all that kind of stuff comes in.
And you think that happens because Larry David leaves in season 7?
Partly, but I also think it's because Jason Alexander, as an actor and as a comedic actor, probably was like, I am taking control of this character now. I'm seeing the laughs coming with this angle, the yelling, and now just naturally that's who he became. I think that's what happened. And of course, no more Larry David there to control it. No more Tom Sharones to control it. And ratings are through the fucking roof. So there you go.
Yeah. That's interesting. And also, I think we have to put in he was probably bored. I mean,
Fair.
he did it for so long, so many times. And he, of all of each of the 4 actors, Michael Richards ruined his career for obvious reasons. Seinfeld didn't really want to act again and is doing exactly what he wants to do.
Right.
Dreyfuss has reinvented herself in a way that almost no sitcom person since has.
Agreed.
Maybe you could put Ted Danson in that, but I think she's even done more different, like, variety of things. Jason Alexander is kind of the odd man out, I think. Like, he did Shallow Hal, and then it just kind of... I think he thinks of himself as like an actor with a capital A, and the character of George seemed. I feel like he begrudgingly accepts his fate as George, but I don't. I think if he had to do it over again, except for the money part, I don't know if he would do it. Every time I hear him talk about it, I don't think he likes this. I don't think he likes to be thought of as George.
And it's funny, we took a little jab at late George, but overall, we think of George as the best character on the show. I mean, when we go through lines, episodes, like, he is the star, like, hands down. But I'm curious, so again, we went through our list, and for the most part, we agreed, but we never actually matched an actual episode.
Oh, we matched a couple of times. We matched like
a couple times. So did like Harrison, did you was there any contention on any of the lists? Like, whoa, no way that's top 5, or like, how did you guys like meet in the middle on that? Or did Sam have the final say because he had the Vanity Fair contract?
I mean, Sam definitely had final say. I mean, I think, as Sam has said, I think he made some big mistakes. And don't we all, on a day-to-day basis, certainly. I at the time definitely deferred to Sam. I think I didn't have the courage to speak out at that point in my life. But now I do. I have the strength, and I want to say, Sam, I'm siding with them. I think you really fucked up a little bit on some of these. I'm really bummed. I'm really disappointed. But I did fight. I fought some of these. I know marine biologists. I wanted to be maybe number 1. I love marine biologists, but.
It's funny you said that. When we ranked these, O'Hara said that he thinks if America was pooled, marine biologists would be number 1. I disagreed with him. I thought it'd be like a yada, yada, yada or something like that, more of a, but he's steadfast on marine biologists would be number 1. And we had it in our top. Would we have it 6, 5?
So let's take a look at our.
We had it 6.
Let's take a look at our top 10, right?
You want me to share my screen or no?
I have it. I have it here.
Oh, you got it there? Okay.
All right. So our number 10 was The Jacket from season 2.
Yep. And you had it 156.
You guys had that ranked 156th.
Yeah.
Your thoughts? Your thoughts there?
Big discrepancy.
It's a huge discrepancy, and in fact, I rewatched it last week, not even knowing that this was on your list. And look, it's a totally pleasant episode. It has basically no Kramer.
Yeah, no Kramer. And barely Elaine.
It has barely any Elaine, but now knowing what you two want, which is, I guess, is basically yourselves in the show, you two buddies, this makes a whole lot of sense. That this is you two with the jacket, It is
Talking
funny.
to Tierney, talking to Reservoir Dogs.
Who's
boss.
great?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Who's just so fantastic. There's basically one joke. I mean, it's one joke. It's like he's an alcoholic and scary, and Elaine abandons him, and the jacket like has some pink stuff on the inside. I forgot what it's
Andy
suede,
Sharps, yeah.
suede jacket.
Master of the house, Sam. Come on.
That's good. That is good.
Yeah, you keep adding good things.
Just Georgia. I'm walking out of here. If you don't say anything, I'm going to think you paid $1,000 for this jacket. Like that whole scene. Come on.
This is also early enough. Again, not that he ever became a good actor, but Seinfeld is like actually actively bad in these first few seasons. Like he is so bad at acting in this episode. I just watched it because I was like, he can't keep it in. He's like Jimmy Fallon on SNL. Like he just cannot keep it in, and he always busts out. And I found him anyway. This is a totally pleasant episode. The thing is, everything that you put here, I like. I don't dislike any episode except for maybe one or two.
Here's what I will say though. This is season 2. I think there's a reason we never see Elaine's dad again. You know what I'm saying? I think,
I wanted more of him.
No need to go back to that well,
Well, listen, that's a good point, but that's something that they didn't really bring back. They didn't really bring back people until that like season 4, season 5, like Costanza's, the parents. That just
brought back.
And again, season 2, thinking about it, like they thought they were done, right? This was like a different era. Like they were. And suppose there's a story. Elaine's dad like got in a fight on set. It had nothing to do.
They didn't really like. I guess it wasn't
the
most pleasant experience for them with him there, from what we heard. But to defend ourselves a little bit on the season 2 stuff is, again, we were watching this live, so
that's awesome.
We're watching it as it's happening, and when an episode like that comes on the screen, especially our number one, the phone message, when that comes on the screen, when you're used to watching like Family Ties and fucking all this shit that had been on every day, you're like, wait a minute, what the hell is going on? These guys are talking about this. We're like 12 years old. It's blowing their fucking minds. That sticks with you when you're going to this ranking. We never could get out of that frame of mind of like. So what I would say. So a good example, anything that's been around for a very long time. Like let's say someone says I'm a Bob Dylan fan, right? Or I'm okay, what Bob Dylan do you like? Do you like the freewheeling Bob Dylan? Or do you like fucking Planet Waves Bob Dylan, right? So it's completely different Bob Dylans. But if you listen to it, if you start at his first album, you've never heard Bob Dylan before, and you listen to it all the way through the way it happened in real time, you're going to have a much better appreciation, I think, of the progression and the changes and all these different things. When you just put on a season 2 and you just watch season 8, you're all like, what the hell? It's a completely different show. They're just sitting here. It's 2 of them. Mm-hmm. It's an odd thing that I don't think it's talked about enough as far as like, and that's why you hear a lot of old timers be like, well, Seinfeld sucks anyway. All in the Family was better than everything. It's like, well, you can keep going back with that.
All right.
Dynamic. Well, I got off there a little bit, guys.
So back to the list. Our number 10, we just talked about. Your number 10 was the Andrea Doria. We rank that just like the last one, complete opposite. We rank that 142.
I like the Andrea Doria. I liked it, but yeah.
Why
did you guys rank that 10th?
I think that's just a great. I mean, yeah, and I would say if you don't like George at that state of mind and at that register, like this episode is definitely not going to work. Which I now know you both don't, but I
actually like that George. I mean, one of the best lines ever in the Andrew Doria when he says, "If you take everything I've accomplished my whole life and condense it into one day, it looks decent." I believe that's that episode.
Yeah,
I think that's that episode, which is a great line. I mean, that's like a stanza line I can hang my hat on.
I mean, to me, it is. The reason I put it in there, and I actually, again, maybe watched this a couple months ago, and it totally holds up. If we're to think about the show, obviously it doesn't have like a continuous storyline, but like George is building towards something, and some would say it's like an evolution of a person. You could call it like a de-evolution of a person because he just gets worse and worse. This is pretty much rock bottom. And the fact that he gets to in trying to get the apartment from an Andrea Doria survivor, relive his past traumas, and I'm putting those in quotes. It's just, that's incredible. In closing, I have this quote right here. In closing, these stories have not been embellished because they need no embellishment. They are simply horrifyingly the stories of my life as a short, stocky, slow-witted, bald man. And that episode is I don't know, it kind of is representative of what George amounted to after 8 or 9 years. And it's like really deeply depressing in some ways and very funny in another.
Well put. Well put. And no, that's well put. I can't argue that. I can't argue that. O'Hara probably could, but
yeah, I'm a little more stubborn. But Sam, you changed me a little bit there.
That was well put. Well put.
I might move it to 120. So
we had just a quick one on that. One of our guests, Andy Fiore, a stand-up comic, he loves the ahoy line when George first sees the guy who was in the he says ahoy to him. That was one of his favorite lines when we asked him. So
doesn't he say like, oh, it was a terrible car crash, and they're like shipwreck.
Yeah.
Like it's just there's so many good moments in this. I and also the image of the old man who's the Andrea Doria survivor, just his face after he hears George's stories, and he just does this in the corner.
Like he knows he can't compete.
He knows he can't hang with them.
Yeah.
He can't hang with Costanza. I just love that.
It's. I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on Andrew Doria, but so you love George throughout, because obviously there's the boyfriend, the Vandal Industries. Obviously, you love that. The marine biologist you have up there, and then also the Andrew Doria. So you loved him consistently throughout. It sounds like.
I think it's hard pressed to say that there's a character more important to the show.
Yeah.
I mean, in so much as like if we think of Seinfeld as the Beatles, and all 4 pieces need to like exist for them to coexist as a great unit, I would say he's either McCartney or Lennon in terms of importance. Like I don't know, I would put just because he is, him and Jerry are the most. But then actually I put Kramer in this bad analogy.
Well, it's funny you mention all those, and like what we're seeing. Not that Twitter's a barometer or anything, but like we're seeing a lot of like people rewatching and appreciating Lane a lot more, which is interesting. So
that makes sense. But
yeah.
I mean, I think watching it in retrospect, you're like, oh wow, they weren't completely misogynistic. They had some inkling towards a sort of feminist lens, which at the time was really progressive.
Correct. So
I'm imagining that's why people like her now.
I think you're right. So we'll just go through the top 10 here. Sounds good. So number 9 for us was The Opposite. You guys ranked at 14th, so I think that we're pretty.
Yeah,
that's
a flip
on there.
I'm good with either of those.
That's an ultimate episode, right?
The Opposite.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. It's, and also who hasn't imagined that happening?
Yeah. I love, and I know Harry wants to just go down the list, but I just like to I mean, one of the things about The Opposite is one of the things I love about the show, especially the early seasons, and I talked about this before, but no, it's just the existentialism in Seinfeld. There's so many of these like one-liners sometimes where Kramer's like, listen to your little man, and George's like, the little man's an idiot. Just there's always things about even the pony remark when they're like, what happens when there's a lot of these things, and Opposite's one of those. I feel like, George, like my whole philosophy in life, I'm going to change it all, man. I'm just going to do the opposite, and it happens up working for him. I just love when they can slide that in so seamlessly into a storyline or even just a line. It's really good.
Did you two ever try to do the opposite of what you normally do?
Yeah, for sure.
Every day of my life.
So you wake up and you think, my instincts are shit. I got to go the other way.
Yes, quite
100%. Sam, just wait, man. Wait till you hit 40. You're gonna be like, what can I do? It's gonna change.
Start rethinking some things. You start a podcast on Seinfeld when you're going through your midlife crisis. It's
Look, if Harrison and I can help guide you both through a midlife crisis, we're happy to do it. We're happy to do it.
That's why we're here. That's what build this whole thing to me.
This actually was Harrison called me. He's like, we have to do this. They need help. We got to do it.
All right. So number 9 for you guys was The Sponge. And that was written by our friend Peter Melman. We had that ranked 150.
couldn't have been that close of a friend.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
He's our
Paul
friend.
Melman also wrote up a whole bunch of great episodes. We that's the thing. We wanted to be fair, so that's the thing. I don't know if you had the, I don't want to say authority, but was it in your mind at all when you wrote the Vanity Fair piece to be critical or negative at all? Because it seemed like even the ones you ranked low, you were finding the one highlight or being positive in every one of them. It was just like, let's just say they're all what they are. You know?
I mean, I feel like I barely have the authority to choose what I wear in the morning. So no, I don't. I definitely don't think I had the authority. No. Was I not critical of any of them? There's only
No, you were nice.
No, you were nice pretty much on all of them. Even the ones that you didn't really like, you were still
yeah.
nice.
Well, this is a testament. That was 6 years ago. I was much nicer then. I'm less nice now.
But Sam, that's how he kicked it off. Like, it's an impossible task to rank
of course,
the greatest comedy ever. Like, even the dogs, like we consider dogs, are still great episodes. You know what I mean? So I get it.
I'm wondering where you guys have that one with Stephen Tobolowsky, because I think that's actually the worst episode of the show. I think it's the heart attack.
The heart attack.
Yeah, I think that's the worst episode of the show.
Well, you had the dog as your worst.
I didn't like the dog at all. I'm with you on that. That was my least favorite of the season, I believe. You had the heart attack at 95, I think. 95
oh, the dog with the rich guy on the plane?
Yes, I didn't like that episode either, man. I agree with you.
That's one of the only episodes where I pass through it on like the Hulu channel, or the season 3. I think it's in season 3, and I'm like, what is that?
So I'm
right above the Andrew Doria, by the way.
What is that? Is it really?
Yeah, but I didn't like the dog either.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Like, that's an episode you will skip, right? So for us, it's the Dealership season 9, which you rank pretty high. It's in the 50s.
Everyone seems to love the Dealership. We were never big on the Dealership.
The Dealership was one of the first episodes I ever watched, and it was something my dad showed me, and I was a kid. And I remember that part of like getting the Twix bar. There's something about, again, this is probably tied to the way that the show is sort of inextricably linked to both of your lives at the age of 12, finding it and kind of like growing up as the show happened. The Dealership has a part of the show that I think is accurate to being a kid, which is you're forced to go to places with your parents that you never want to go to. And the only refuge, the only highlight is like maybe getting a treat, like a Twix, in one of those vending machines while you wait for them to do something. And for some reason, this is in my head, that I love this episode watching it with my father as a kid. And even now, I think it's fine. But you guys just don't like old seasons. I mean, season 8, season 9. So
and
the debating.
I think it was well said what you just said. Like, context of where you are in your life, watching it with your father. Like, we watched this after we watched the Glory Years, and it's just, to me, I don't know why George was there. Like, and he's just yelling, and I'm sitting there doing high fives. Like, I don't know. It was just.
But hold on, though. That's the whole premise of the show. I don't know why they're there. I mean, the amount of times where like Elaine, it's like a Tuesday. And it's like noon, and Elaine's at Seinfeld's apartment. And you're like, don't you have a job? Like, the whole show is like, God, they really hang out a lot. It seems odd. I don't know.
Yeah, but that was early years. Like, George was unemployed. Like, I don't know. And Melman says the same thing because, again, he came at the beginning. He said the later years got gimmicky. They just kind of forced things, and like it was just quick hitting. And we respect that, but I respect your story like that. To me, now I see it in a different lens. So,
I get that, and I think Harrison. I don't know how you feel, but I think Harrison and I feel the same about. There's definitely some stuff in the later seasons where it's like, all right.
I think, I mean, I think 9 is better than 8. I mean, I argued 9. I argued The Maid. I argued The Voice. I argued The Burning. Those are all solid 9 episodes with great lines. A lot of times one line sticks out to me, and that usually puts me ahead. Like, Kramer and the Maid, I'm at the next universe, first and first, second the same street intersected. Things like that just kind of pop up. So I get it, and I think they really rebounded in season 9. I mean, I think season 8 was hard to get through.
And I would say, like, Sam, I barely didn't change my rankings from when I saw them live. A couple episodes when I rewatched, like when the engagement happened and Susan died, watching that now rubbed me the wrong way, so I put it at the bottom. Like, but for the most part, what I remember live still resonates. And to your point, right? Like watching that with your dad, that's the same way I felt live. So that's kind of what goes into the rankings.
You know what it is about the dealership? And Harrison can attest to this. I always drive on empty.
That's a great scene.
To the end.
That's a great scene. That's what I argued. The only thing that was funny about the dealership.
It's so dumb that I do that, but I always think, well, Kramer made it.
but also that's
me and that other guy.
Like Sam will send me screenshots from his phone, and I get so anxious. His phone's at like 1% battery. I'm like, what's going on? Jesus Christ! You live your life on empty.
That really is true.
Hey, listen, the beauty of the show. All right, number 8, we completely disagreed on this as well. We had the Hamptons. You had this ranked 97th. To me, this is the perfect episode. What didn't you like about it?
I was wrong.
Oh, okay.
All right, beautiful.
I gotta say, Harrison, what do you think? I mean, I just feel like this episode's great. I put it in the top 30 now.
Great episode. Sam was wrong, and you know, and that's nothing new. I think you guys will find it.
All right, so for you, number 8 was the Subway. Where do we have that ranked? We had that ranked. That could be. I mean, I could change that all the time. I think we had that around 60, but again, anything from 1 to 60 could easily be flopped. You know?
Yeah, I think that's an agreement. I think that's a little higher than where I'd put it now, but it's great, and it's again one of the few times where they deviate from the sort of standard structure of apartment, place of work. Like the Chinese restaurant or something.
I think the
voiceover stuff is cool too.
I think the Subway's brilliant. All right, number 7 for us, another big disagreement, but I think we'll know why for you, was The Note, which was when George got the massage with Raymond. It was pretty much George and Elaine. Actually, I'm trying to think. Was that Dinky Donuts with Kramer?
With DiMaggio?
I could be butchering that one.
Talking about
but either way,
the note is I think it moved when he gets the.
No, that's the massage. That's the main story. Yeah. So we had that ranked, like I said, 7th. You had it ranked 112.
Mm-hmm.
That was an early season 3.
No, yeah, I just rewatched that one too. As you see, I watch the show very often. Harrison, what do you think of this?
I mean,
the note was Dinky Donuts.
Yeah, I think that's another classic example of, getting it wrong. But I think the good thing about being wrong and being a failure in some ways is that you learn as you move forward, And I think Sam's doing a lot of learning today, and I'm really glad you guys could help him out with that. Sam, do you feel like you're learning from your mistakes?
I'm certainly learning from you. I would say I would move this up too, and I think Harrison and I, especially as two teenagers, sexually confusing time. That episode is like the amount of times I've thought about that, being like, I touched someone. Did it move? Does that signify something? I think that's a really good episode. And the DiMaggio Dinky Donuts, dinking his donut, DiMaggio wouldn't do that. And then Kramer kind of going. It's a great episode. I don't remember that being part of it, but if you say it's in there, then
I just double check to make sure I'm not, giving us any false.
So your number 7, which was my favorite of season 6, we didn't have it ranked as high, but The Race, which I think probably had one of the greatest scenes the series ever saw. When
top 10 scene for sure.
When George walked in about the race and he saw Duncan Meyer. I mean, maybe that's what did it for you.
The Race is definitely one of my father's favorites. Also, as you're saying, this is kind of a trend, and I just love the idea of I choose not to run. I choose not to run, which of course is like the most like blaring tacit admission that like I cannot run, and I did not run, and I did not win, and I just love that. I also feel like Harrison and I would do that if we did like cheat our way to a victory. I think we would both say I choose not to run.
Oh yeah, and then also the thing of like, I think we actually have done the thing before of like pretending we haven't seen each other in a while.
We were going to do it on this podcast.
That would be great. Yeah, to me that scene. I mean, yeah, I think it's a great show, a great episode. So number 6, we're pretty aligned here. We chose the marine biologist. You guys have it at number 2. And then your number 6 is the mango, which we love. We rank that 33. So
I can see that in the top 20 for sure. Mango, I have no problem there.
Love the mango. Love the mango.
Joe's fruit.
Yeah, the woman had an orgasm under false pretenses. That's sexual perjury. Yeah, that episode's great. I know because I faked it. Yes. Okay. Now I'm reading these quotes again. Yeah, that episode's great.
So yeah, we're pretty much aligned there. And then our number 5 is the contest. You guys have that number 1, so no argument there. Your number 5 is an interesting one. It's one I would watch at any moment. The Switch, which we ranked. God, we ranked it low.
I was a little down on the Switch. I think that's why you were big on it. I thought it was a little gimmicky with the overhead shot, and it was funny. Don't get me wrong, it was funny, but a little montage and.
Oh, I love the montage.
Yeah, love
montage. Fan of the montage.
we love the montage.
We love the montage.
This is most of Harrison and I, our friendship and lives together is based on that kind of nonsense montage of working over an issue that means essentially nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
So you would keep the Switch if you had to re-rank today in the top 5?
No.
George pushing a check away in the montage was great. I have to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is good. And that is when you meet Kramer's mother, I believe, for the first time.
Correct.
Is in that. I don't know if I put it in the top 5. I think it would be in the top 20 though. I mean, I like that one a lot. And again, to speak to the thing you two were like talking about, if it's a show about 2 friends, this episode is like about 2 friends. And
agreed. You're right. You're convincing me now.
2 boys.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, it's about 2 men who are like, wouldn't it be great if you could swap out the girl that you're seeing? And then they're met with a better offer, which is, wouldn't it be great to have a threesome?
Right.
And for both of them to be like, that's so great. Of course I won't do it.
Yes.
I get mad at Jerry every time I watch it. I get mad at him.
When George's like,
come on.
Thank God you have, you know me and have access to my my dementia.
Yeah.
You get mad at it because are you like, oh, I would do the threesome?
Yeah. I mean, come on.
Would you really though?
Right,
would you really do it?
Just in case my wife's listening, let's move on to number 5. So number 4.
You gotta get headphones, man. You gotta get headphones.
So number 4. This podcast is making me thirsty. It was named after this episode. The alternate side we rank at number 4. You rank at 103. Very interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, and in fact, I forgot that line was in there until Harrison told me before we taped.
That's a great episode, though.
No, it's a great episode.
George's meltdown and stuff. Love it.
Yeah, I would move that.
Reservation.
Oh, I know. So that's one of my favorite jokes in the history. Anyone could take the reservation. You have to hold the reservation. Not on the gas. Yeah, that would be in my top 50 for sure. It's a great episode.
All right, good. So it looks like both of our lists are changing in real time.
We are doing more compromising than any politician has done in the last 20 years.
This is
I'm
what
moving
happens.
you-
You sit down, you talk it through, you present your case, and
Let's go.
you start
I love
seeing
it.
lines.
So you're number 4, an interesting pick, the Merv Griffin Show.
Great. Well, you guys
It's a
basically
fan favorite, but it is an embarrassment to the character of George Costanza. In my mind.
I actually
Saving
think
a
it's-
squirrel.
No, it's a testament to his genius and brilliance. And it's tough again to debate you guys about seasons that I think you both slept through while
But we were
watching.
in college when that was aired. I barely
Okay,
saw
so
an
then-
episode of season 8. I don't think alive.
Well, no.
That
So
was-
then you guys have to rewatch these because you guys
I
were
mean,
like
I
high.
have rewatched it, but
You were with girls. I don't know what you're doing in college, but you were not watching Seinfeld. You weren't sitting with Seinfeld diligently. I think you need to re-look at these.
so beyond Merv Griffin. Seriously, I mean, come on, man.
Okay.
Saving a squirrel.
Well, it's tough for.
I like it better. To be fair.
For reference, Tony is no longer on the Zoom video call. I think because he's afraid to debate.
I don't know what's going on. I hope this thing's recorded, to be honest.
It is. It says
I
it is.
lost my video.
Harrison, Merv Griffin show. You like this one?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think something Sam said is something we should circle back on is the level of diligence you guys have when it comes to. I mean, like this is like I feel like you said, it's a fan favorite. This is an important episode, and you guys were off in college fucking off, not. You guys gotta get on your game. I mean, this podcast is making me thirsty, man. Come on.
You two should have known in college that 20 years later you're gonna be doing a podcast, and I really need to sit with these episodes.
You were not thinking ahead.
You were thinking about.
Dude, I rewatched it for this podcast, and it was even more horrible the next time.
But he's stuck on this swirl. There's bits and pieces, but keep in mind,
Kramer makes me laugh. I can't say he doesn't.
Kramer does, and Newman. Like season 9, though, like I'm like Elaine and George they're done for me. But listen, I know majority of people 35 and under do love this show, so I respect it.
So I'll make the case. I'll make a very quick case.
Yeah.
Again, earlier I talked about how like if we're to think of the arc of George basically leading into like the Andrea Doria and his insanity, the Merv Griffin one is kind of Kramer's peak insanity. He is someone who is often like, God, I'm so tired from work, and Jerry's like, what work? Like no one knows what he does for work. No one understands where he has money. And picking up the old set from the trash can of the Merv Griffin show and recreating it, it is to me like the height of his imagination and his delusion is creating this show. And it's really, again, like watching most of the show, it's like Tony said, it has this kind of existential bend that is sad and almost melancholic, and then also deeply, deeply funny. And I don't know. I just find the Merv Griffin episode to basically be telling Kramer like, here it is, man. Like, do your thing. Like this
You're making a real good point, man. I gotta tell you, man. You keep bringing me back with this.
Well, he's making a good point, but he's highlighting Kramer only, and I think like and he mentioned this in the jacket, is only George and Jerry. Like this episode is only Kramer. Like,
right, but it's Kramer's. What's the word? There's probably a word. It's not coup d'état. There's probably a fancy word. It's Kramer's like
coming out
opus
party
or something. It's like
his
final,
opus.
like you said, it's his final. Like
it's his last dance.
Yeah, I've completely lost it. I'm now doing the Merv Griffin show in my apartment. Fair. It's kind of like the Screen Door one, which I'm trying to remember which episode that was. I wish horrible. But to Sam's point, that's another one where where he pretty much was just like, I'm going to act like I live in the suburbs right now, put a screen door in my fucking. So it started getting crazier and crazier. If you want to look at it from that angle, you make a valid point.
So I agree with the screen door one. That is a real like, stretch, and it's like they had to do so many episodes per season, so eventually you just gonna get a few ideas that fall through the cracks, and they have to make a show. This is just like an actual good idea. I mean, Newman being the co-host is great. The bird guy with the hawk, I think, comes. I enjoy that. There's a B plot and C plot. You're right. I'm not remembering it now, and I usually can remember these.
But this for you, you do it again. This stays at number 4.
I think it stays in the top 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we got 3 to go. You guys cool with that?
Yeah.
All right. So number 3 for us, another one we kind of disagreed with here, the limo. I could any other time I could rank this one. I had it in my number 1.
Number 1 at one point.
You guys ranked it. You guys ranked it 95.
Yeah, I think it should be higher up. This is a great episode.
Fantastic. I agree.
It's
I just rewatched that early in the pandemic. It's a top 20.
2 friends, O'Brien and Murphy, and then not only that, the dynamic between Kramer and Elaine, I think, is they rarely get together. And like, is Jerry working for the CIA? There's just Kramer at his best, cutesy Elaine. It's an epic episode in our mind.
It is, and I think the case you two are making about like the show really being like a product of the 90s. This episode, sort of like with the Air Jordan references and like the weird communist manifesto era of like McCarthyism tying it. It's like it really does feel like the 90s to me, based on everything I've read. Again, I was like barely alive, and it is so fantastic, and the kind of like dance they do in the car with these people who don't know what he looks like.
So good.
It's a great episode. It's a great episode. Also, again, I can't believe we haven't talked about this. How many of the basic ideas of Seinfeld have found themselves in your life? Like, that's an idea. Every time I go to the airport now and I'm like, fuck, I don't want to get an Uber. I don't want to wait for a friend to like definitely, show up late or not want to pick me up. Harrison often has done that. Thank you, Harrison. But how many times have you
I'm
thought?
Always on time. You better watch yourself.
But how many times have you done that? And you're like, God, I would love to just like hop into this limo for a name that like this guy has been standing there for 30 minutes. I think about that every time.
Oh yeah,
of course. And I've used the name O'Brien when someone asked me for my name. I didn't want to give it to him several times.
So your number 3 pretty much aligns. We have it in our top 20. Easy is the Keith Hernandez, the boyfriend episode. I mean, I think that episode, like, it took it to another level. And like, once that was established, the show took off in my mind. Like it had everything, right? Like George at his best, they all were just like on point. And it was an hour episode, which is interesting, right? It was parts 1 and 2. So a lot of those kind of fell off a little bit, but like, the boyfriend, no complaints there.
Genius.
Jerry's best performance for sure, I think.
Absolutely. And it is. I think so. And again, it just, when the show is about like masculinity and the weird kind of camaraderies and friendships we form with other like straight men, assuming you are a straight man.
Right. I mean, I'm not driving to the airport.
There's anything wrong with that, but
there's anything wrong with that.
Right.
And I just think that it just taps into it in Keith Hernandez and the second spitter behind the bushes on the gravelly road. I mean, it's a killer episode. Love that one.
So speaking of season 3, before I get to season 2, you interviewed Philip Baker Hall, which was a awesome interview, man. Like, and I know you didn't touch too much on Seinfeld, but you did. I know you brought it up, obviously, because you're a fan. But get him and kind of what was that conversation like? I mean, the library is one of our favorites. I don't know.
Consistently, whenever we ask our guests who your favorite one-off characters, he's consistently mentioned as the guy.
Philip Baker Hall. I mean, shit, man. I mean, one of the best living actors we have. I think he's almost 90 now. At the time, he was maybe 87. I asked him to come on through his representation. The episode went well enough. The podcast went well enough that about 2 years later, we did an event in LA at a movie theater where we played a film called Secret Honor, where he plays Nixon. It's directed by Robert Altman. And in the intro, for me to kind of do this Q&A with him afterward, I say, Philip Baker Hall, one of the greatest living actors we have, blah, blah, blah. I get all these credits. And I say, and of course, this wonderful performance. And right on cue, the projectionist at this theater turns on the clip of Seinfeld.
Nice.
And it just kills. It kills. And he, to a good sport about it, even though he's like a well-schooled, trained, brilliant actor, loves the show. And if you notice, he did a bit part in BoJack Horseman, really does like comedy. And he loved his work there. And he does hear from people still who are like, you're Bookman. And he's like, yeah, I guess. He also is Philip Baker Hall.
But he mentioned in your podcast, it was a tough audition, like Hollywood A-list stars were waiting to, for that same role. So it was, he took it seriously, and it seemed a really legit role, and obviously he killed it. So that was awesome.
It's incredible.
All right, I digress. Let's get to our final two here. So we have, and we agree on this pretty much. Our number 2 is The Red Dot. You had that at 13. Incredible episode. I mean, that's Jason Alexander. They interviewed him recently. His favorite line ever was from that episode. Obviously when Littman is firing him, George says, was that wrong? So that made us feel good that Jason Alexander, obviously, big season 3 guy. Your number 2, we agree with, can't argue, The Marine Biologist. Incredible. Where we disagree a little bit is our final. So our number 1 episode of all time is The Phone Message. You had this ranked 109. Harrison, your thoughts?
I think this does a good job of what is, I think, before and since kind of a trope in sitcoms. I feel like.
And here's the thing. Let me jump in. You guys never grew up with answering machines. To us,
I grew up with answering.
You did?
We got the tail end of it.
Calling a girl, and
that kind of thing. Yeah. Because that to me ranks so true. I mean, you're 12 years old watching that, and you're hearing these adults talking about if you're eating an apple, you sound and then that whole scene on how he even got the date is amazing to me. And then obviously the son of a bang, son of a boom, and tippy toe, and
coffee's not coffee, coffee's sex.
That's great.
It's loaded.
I don't know. So I don't know. I don't know if you've rewatched that one lately, but 109 seems really low. But yeah, it's obviously our number 1, so I'm obviously going to say that. But I can't argue that. And then obviously your number 1 is The Contest, which we ranked in our top 5. So I think we're pretty aligned there. And I think that's Larry David's favorite episode. I mean, that's probably the episode, right? Most people kind of turn to as the best episode of all time.
I would do that over. I wouldn't put it there. I don't know where I put it. I don't know what would be 1.
Oh, really? You would move The Contest?
I think so. The thing is, what happened is that late, kind of at the final hour of turning this thing in, I do remember Vanity Fair being like, we're going to make a graphic for the top 10 as opposed to you writing something. So if you look at it, there's a graphic of the top 10.
Yeah.
And I think what happened was I was like, well, it has to be a graphic. So if it's a graphic, then it needs to have characteristics or details or bit pieces that will stand out to be part of the graphic. It's funny how so many of these things that we sort of think about on the internet, and we think there were so many there were not a lot of big decisions. It often comes down to very stupid editorial decisions, which is one of the reasons I left journalism, is that it's so much about like weird SEO numbers that you're not privy to, and this weird editorial hierarchy that you are given breadcrumb pieces like to figure it out yourself. This is all to say, I just want to go to because we can talk about the contest, but who cares? Everyone's seen the contest. It's great. The phone message is really fantastic. And if the show is like best at anything, and again, you two keep talking about how you both are like guys at that age, don't you feel like the show is at its best when it's like, hey, these are two men that are basically stunted. They are trying to get laid. They're not that good at it. Seinfeld is definitely like better at it, but it exposes like the neuroses, the stupidity, the idiocy of these two guys, and the absolute like self-loathing nature of them. In this episode, and in many of your favorites, are often about like being uncomfortable around women and trying to like get them to like them. And the phone message is like the epitome of that.
What's funny, Sam, is we had Tawny Katana on last night. Check it out, and it's Jerry in real life. Just you touched on it. Like that's how he got her to be on the show. How he got to ask her out in real life was to get her a spot on the show, and like he was nervous about it. She talked about it, like she was open, like that they dated, etc. And it's just so interesting that like his ideas came from obviously real life experiences, but the phone message is just something that like no matter how many times I watch it, I cry out loud. Like George leaving that message and like wishing he could take it back. Like I don't know. I feel like we've all been in those shoes. So that's
And to your point, Sam, I mean, one of the greatest lines of the whole show is when they literally have that conversation you just mentioned, when they're like, "We're not men. What are we doing here? What are we doing in our lives?" Like that whole like epiphany of this is it. We've been kids this whole time. We're 30-something years old and we're still kids, and that's why the show, I think, rings true with generations of it's just going to continue, because that's innate in everyone, right? That uncomfortability, that how do you get them to like me? Even George to the line, you like them, they don't like you, they like you, you don't like them. I mean, so many lines just have to do with that whole, encompasses it all right there. And that's why the beauty of it. And, the show took off to a different angle later on, but that's, you've convinced us that some of those episodes hold true, I think. And we swayed you a little bit the other way. And that's the beauty of the show and the beauty of these lists and why we talk about these things, and it's still going 30 years later, right?
I think so. Harrison, what do you think?
I think we didn't lay into Sam enough on this episode. I've said it once, I'll say it again. I think, he made some big mistakes. The phone message, obviously, you guys have convinced me it should have been a lot higher. But Sam's tyranny has come to an end, I feel. So I do really appreciate you guys finally, bending his opinions, bending his will a little bit, because let me tell you, this guy's a real piece of work, and he really needed this, I think. So I thank you guys for that.
We really appreciate both of you guys coming on, man. This was awesome, guys. You
guys are great, man. And Sam's list is just out there. So like, it's the gold standard, man. We appreciate you hopping on and going through at least the top 10 and like some of your memories of the show. This was great.
Thanks, guys. We really had a great time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Stay safe.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man.
Bye-bye.